So once we have done the discovery phase, we have done the solution design, and we have started development also. We have started the development of the scripts also. Now clients, they started asking me, they started asking me, or they started asking us, what is the infrastructure I need? What is the infrastructure I need? Okay, to set up the RPA, infra. So what kind of infrastructure we need? What is the infrastructure process I need to, select? How to install the bots? Where to install the bots? How do I adopt and integrate the process with the security requirements of the client? How do I adopt and integrate the process with the technology requirements of the client? This week, especially today's session is little bit tricky and a difficult session. You should have minimum understanding on the RPA process and tools. Those people only eligible. If it is your first class, if you have not attended any tool, then definitely it will be confusing to you. So when we go to this stage, we got the project, RPA project, we have done some POCs, we selected the use cases, we have done the tools comparison, we have installed the tools, we hired multiple RPA developers, they are working on multiple POCs. Now, next client question is, how these scripts are going to be executed in production environment. For example, I have developed one script in my laptop. If I resign to the company, who will execute that script? How you somewhere you have to schedule those scripts. Somewhere you have to install those scripts. Somewhere you have to deploy the scripts. So how many scripts we have? How many bots we have taken? So which script is running from which bot? What is the architecture, client server architecture? What kind of infrastructure we need? What is the server operating system? What is the client operating system? So where to install? Can we install in the physical server, or do we need to install in a cloud environment? So what is virtual machine? Why we are talking about virtual machine? This kind of architecture and infra. I'm going to talk about 2 points today. Architecture, infrastructure. Architecture, infrastructure. Right? So, and most of the interview questions for RPA developer will come from today's session. So, these are the questions from the client. What is the infrastructure I need? What is the infrastructure process I need to select? Let me tell you one live example. Recently, for one of the client, we have selected some use cases, 10 use cases. We developed some 10 scripts, and we said you have a client server architecture, so that we deploy all the scripts in client, so that you can execute from the server. So some kind of discussion we had. Then first question from the project team is, tell me, can we deploy all these scripts in local machine or not? Can we deploy the scripts in local machine or not? So do we need a server setup? If we need server setup, do we need it? Is it in VLAN, or what kind of communication process? In MNC, to get the access for server, to host the physical server, it is 90 days time they need. So completely today I'm going to talk about kind of an administrative perspective. Administrative perspective of RPA. Okay, so these are the questions from the client, because you cannot deploy like that. You cannot set up you cannot set up Blue Prism like that, or automation anywhere. You have to follow client security guidelines. So where to deploy, how to deploy, how many bots we have to deploy, what is the server architecture, client architecture. Can we deploy in the laptop, Windows 7, Windows 10? Is it VM? If it is VM, how different bots will communicate? How bot to server communication? How bot will talk to control room? So a lot of things I'm going to discuss. Right? So This is the I can say the agenda: technology architecture principles. So just I will go with one tool, high level application architecture, understanding the production environment. So how many environments we need in RPA environment setup? Okay, so this kind of in-depth knowledge may not require for freshers, 2017 pass outs, but for experienced people, today class is most important. For freshers, least important. Okay, so let us begin with the first question. Okay, so if I want to set up the client server architecture for RPA, either for automation anywhere, or for Blue Prism, if you want to set up client server architecture for RPA, you are an admin. Let's go with this mindset. You are a RPA admin. It's a separate skill, RPA admin. So what are the points you have to remember before going to set up RPA infrastructure? Okay, so you need to understand these principles. If you are already from admin background, this session will be easy to you. If you are not from admin background, it will be difficult. So these are the some of the points you need to remember. First principle is scalable. Scalable. What do you mean by scalable? Scalable means the RPA system must be able to grow and scale to meet the performance goals. See, let me give you an example before going to see this definition and all. Okay. Uh, Initially, we hired 5 RPA developers. Each developer has Blue Prism software. By using the Blue Prism software, they developed the scripts. Now they have 5 scripts which are executing 5 different processes of the client. These 5 scripts, where we have to deploy, because already development is completed. We have tested the scripts. The scripts are working. Somewhere you have to deploy, so these 5 scripts will execute a daily, weekly, or monthly, whatever it is the scheduling we have done. So now how many scripts we have? 5 scripts. Okay. Each script is deployed in one bot. So I will draw a diagram so that you will understand. Say this. I have. So this is laptop 1 or computer 1. This is computer 1. So let's go with this small example. I have 2 computers. So where we have deployed your RPA software, Blue Prism. So any software, it can be any tool, Blue Prism. So it is executing script 1. So for me this is bot 1, right? So this is executing script 1. This is executing script 2. So for me this is bot 2. Okay, so bot 1, bot 2, script 1 and script 2 we have. Now this bot executing 24/7 executing it, and it has automated, daily it is running 1500 tickets or applications per day. In 24/7 it is processing 1500 loan applications, so that process is automated. So what is the volume? Bot 1 is handling per day 1500 tickets. Bot 2 is also like this. It's a different process. It's a process 2. So it has automated process 1. It has automated process 2. It is process 1 and it is process 2. and this process 1, volume is 1500. This is a different process. It is solving some 200 tickets per day. This is the current scenario. Now suddenly, earlier per month only 1500 customers are applying the loan. So I have one bot which is executing this script is enough for me. Now suddenly my client is expanded the branches. They started the more branches. They got the huge volume. So suddenly per day my client is getting 15,000 applications. Earlier how many applications we are having? 1500. Now my client is getting 15,000 applications. We are getting 15,000 applications. But same process. The process, there is no change in the process steps. There is no change in the process steps. No need to modify your automation script. The same script you can run. Script 1 is sufficient. But already my bot 1 is busy 24/7. It is already executing throughout the day. It is handling 1500 applications. Already it is handling 1500 applications. Now suddenly increase in the volume. So what we have to do now? See what we have to do. So question 1. Okay. So question 1. Question 1. Can bot 1 execute 15,000 applications? Can bot 1 execute 15,000 applications? No. Because it is not having time. Question 2. Do we need to modify the script? Not required, because there is no change in the process. So modification to script is not required. Question 3. Do we need any additional implementation cost, development cost? No. No additional development cost. So there is no additional development cost. So there is no additional, development cost. But how to solve this problem? Hope you try to understand the problem first. Okay, so what we have to do, you need to take one more Blue Prism runtime license. In Blue Prism, there are two type of clients. One is interactive client, second one is runtime client. Even same thing applies to automation anywhere. So you have two types of bots in any RPA technology. One type of bot is to develop the script. See, in your laptops you installed, in your current computers you have installed your Blue Prism or Automation Anywhere or UiPath. What you people are doing, you are developing it, you are testing it, you are running it, you are executing it. But so at your level it is done. Now it has to be deployed into the server, so that server will continuously execute daily or weekly. So always RPA technology, they comes with two types of bots. One bot you develop, test and execute. Other bot is only to execute. So that the second category, first category is called interactive client. Second category is called runtime resource. Runtime resource advantage is you cannot use it for development, you cannot use it for testing, but you can only use it for only execution. But they give cheaper license cost. They give it with the cheaper license cost. So my point is, now I want to add more bots. So one bot can handle 1500 applications. But now how many applications I have? 15,000 applications. So how many additional bots we have to take? 10. 9 more. 9 more additional bots I have to take. Okay. So you have paid amount to Blue Prism company. You have taken the software. So they given 9 Blue Prism runtime resources software. Where you install? Somewhere you have to install. Okay. So you can install. So now you need to purchase 9 laptops or computers and 9 Blue Prism softwares. Are you getting my point? So you need to purchase, see, now I have two laptops or two computers. Now I have two computers and two Blue Prism softwares are installed. They are executing the processes. They are executing the processes. Because of the increase in the volume, I need additional board. Not only additional board, you need additional board and somewhere you have to install it. So 9 more computers you need and 9 more boards you need. Very simple topic. Very simple thing. Okay, so I have how many scripts I have now? Two scripts. So let's forget about this scenario. So we'll talk only about this scenario. Okay, so how many scripts I have? 1. How many bots I have? 1. In how many systems I installed? 1. Very simple. That's what we are doing. But it's not in real time. In real time, my client has 10 bots which are installed in 10 computers which are executing one script. In all bots, how many scripts do we have installed? One script. Or 10 bots, 10 computers, 10 scripts. It can be, no, see, 10 bots, 10 computers, 10 scripts, or 1 bot, 10 computers, 10 bots. So, when we get the complexity, so I have one script which is installed in 10 bots. Each bot is installed in one computer, means 10 computers. It increases your infrastructure cost because you need to purchase 10 laptops or 10 computers. Each computer you have to install Windows 7 or above. Each computer you have to install Windows 7 or above. Right? So always infrastructure setup should be easy to scalable. Always what you have to remember, infrastructure setup should be easy to scalable. Means instead of installing these bots in 10 different computers, you do one thing. You have a server, one computer, you call it as a server. In this server, you install 10 virtual machines. One computer is a server to me now. In this server, how many virtual machines I have? 10 virtual machines. We call it as a VM, 10 virtual machine. In each virtual machine, you deploy one bot. So how many computers you need to purchase? 1. That is going to be server. In that server, how many VMs you are going to install? 10. Each VM have one bot. So have a VM image with you. Suddenly client got 15 lakhs applications. Now I want to add more bots. So install one more VM, add bot. Install one more VM, add the bot. This is called scalability. People, if you are not able to understand this concept, you will not get job in IT. I am trying my level best to simplify the statements. Something is gap is there, right? So please try to understand. So what do you mean by scalability? Not only in RPA, if you are installing any client server architecture, administrator of that infrastructure has to consider this point. Point is low infrastructure cost, minimum maintenance, easy to add more clients. This is basic architecture principles in any project, not only in RPA. So always how you set up, how you install the bots. So have a server, have a computer, install VMs in the computer, install bots in the VM. so that no need to spend more time and money for infrastructure, and easy to scale up. Now you read the definition. Okay, I think I have not seen the online chart. We'll see. Okay, this is done. If I increase the capacity of my computer, like increase the processing units, will there be improvement in the performance of the bot? Yes. See, the question is related to infrastructure. So, question is related to infrastructure. The question is, the question is, for example, so one computer, how many VMs you install? 10. If can I install 1000 VMs in one computer? It depends upon the memory, RAM, hard disk. It depends upon the some number of parameters. It depends upon different parameters. So this is the question even we are facing from, so admin, whenever we ask for a VM setup. So last week I worked on the same topic exactly. So when we ask for a VM setup, their first question is, tell me in which server you are installing the VM. What is the server capacity? Second question is this server physical server or cloud server? Third question, if whatever it is, physical or cloud server, what is the hard disk, what is the RAM? And what you install in that physical server? What is the VM capacity you want? So all these points you have to keep in mind while going for RPA implementation. It is not just like developing the script. All your scripts has to be installed in one or multiple bots. Your bots you have to install in one or multiple computers. So then how many, see, to answer this question, we need to go for, let's say, okay, one server, I have installed 10 VMs. If the server is not capable to handle more than 10 VMs, go for second server. Okay, so like this, definitely bot performance also depends upon the VM capacity, right? So, yeah, Ankush Agarwal, hope this answers your question. So currently, if one bot is performing 1500 applications, then by increasing the resources, will be bot able to complete, no. Bot performance is, you cannot measure only on VM capacity. Bot performance is different, VM capacity is different. But bot performance also depends upon VM capacity. It is not like, if you increase the capacity of the resources, bot performance will be improved. Bot has some limitation. Bot has some limitation. So that we'll discuss slowly in coming chapters, coming principles. Give me some time. Okay. So let's move on to, so that's why now if you see now any image, any RPA architecture image, this is RPA developer workstation. This is RPA developer workstation. Where you develop the scripts, where you test the scripts. These are called as interactive clients in Blue Prism. The similar word is given in automation event. Here you see these are the VMs. This box indicates all the VMs are in one server or one computer. So that computer is installed with the VMs. Each VM has a bot. In each VM, what we installed? One bot. If you want more bots, what you have to do? Just add one more VM. If you have more bots, add one more VM. Sir, how to configure VM? It's admin task. Don't think too much about what is VM, how it will be configured. That is not at all related to RPA class. You send an email to admin saying that I need these many VMs should be configured on this server. Each VM capacity should be like this. Okay, and each VM should be installed with so and so software called Blue Prism or Automation Aware or UiPath. That's why you can see clear. This is the RPA architecture diagram. This is the RPA architecture diagram. These are the interactive clients. where you develop the scripts. So how many interactive clients we need for one project? How many interactive clients we need for one project? Depends upon the RPA developer strength. You have 5 developers in your company, have 5 interactive clients. You have 5 Blue Prism developers. Each developer must have a workstation. In each workstation, interactive client should be installed. It's a very simple question. But how many runtime resources we have to install? It depends upon different parameters. That's what we discussed till now. What is difference between interactive client and runtime resource? Interactive client is to develop, test and execute. But runtime resource can only execute. These are the executing processes in real time in your production environment. Bots. All these bots are installed in the VM. All your VMs are configured in one computer where you call it as a server. Any confusion? What is the actual point? Actually, if you remember our discussion, the actual point is scalability. Scalability. So, what is scalability? RPA systems. If it is not visible to you, so I'm reading the statement. So, if you are an admin to RPA, the RPA systems must be able to grow and scale to meet performance goals based on the expected increasing in the volume of the robot transactions, data volume and concurrency of the development. Because see, this year we are having 10 bots in my project. Next year we may add 20 bots. We need 30 bots because we are automating different processes and each process volume is increasing, right? So last year, so when we worked for one client, so we started with 5 bots. Now we have 60 plus bots because client is happy with the RPA implementation. He has the return on investment, so he is adding more and more bots. He is giving more and more work to us. So definitely, while setting up a RPA infrastructure, you need to remember that in future it should be scalable. So any questions are confused on what is scalability? What is scalability? Sometimes we need to add more bots. Why we add more bots? Because one bot may execute more processes or one bot may execute more number of applications. That is the reason we need to add more bots. So one bot may fail to handle all this volume. So I know it is not visible to you. So I will give you notes on this. First, understand the architecture principles. And this may not be interview question to RPA developer. You have to remember these things while going to set up an infrastructure. See, first difficult part in RPA, use case selection. Second difficult part, technical design. Third one, script development. Fourth one, script deployment with the proper architecture and infrastructure. Script deployment with the proper architecture and infrastructure. Okay, anyway, fine. Can I move on to next topic? Yeah, we have a few more questions. Where we can install the control room component. Control room also you can install in the same server. So control room also just a client application. So you can install in control room also in the same server, or if you want control room, you can install in a different server. So next principle. Performance. RPA system must be able to meet throughput and efficiency goals to have a dramatic improvements in accuracy. See, while setting up the infrastructure, you have to understand, performance also. You have to consider performance. That means, which is the correct OS to see. All your VMs are in some machine, right? Some server or machine or computer or laptop. Somewhere you installed your VMs. That VM infrastructure and that the server which hosted the VM, that infrastructure also you need to consider for better performance. So a lot of questions admin team will ask us. How many bots you install? 10 or 20? What is the job of the each bot? how many applications each bot will execute per day. We need to provide such data. Based on that, they come up with go for okay. So go with this much RAM, go with this much hard disk, server capacity. So you need to consider performance. And the third one will be security. See, this is the most important topic in all the principles, because especially banking projects, any client, RPA tools are going to interact with the production systems and going to work on the production data. RPA tools are going to work with the production systems. Means, so we have automated a loan tracking process in SBI. Your bot is going to get your original data, customer original data will be accessed by bot. Bot is a third party software to bank. Blue Prism is a third party software to bank. Right? So definitely, if you go to any sensitive clients or big MNCs, they will raise this concern. So yes, we are ready to implement RPA, but that RPA implementation should be aligned with our security standards. So each client has their own security standards. Each client has their own security standards. Example, if you go to Bank of America, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, those are the banking clients. What they do? So what they do? They give loans. They process credit cards. They handle with PIN numbers. So a lot of sensitive data they handle. Earlier, so bank employees used to handle that sensitive data. Now some of the scenarios we automated by bots, and bots is going to handle that sensitive data. So for RPA infrastructure, see, they have so many questions on security aspect. How bot will log into my web application? How bot will log into my web application? From where you install the bot? Is it in banking server or other than banking network? So I am not going to touch this point now. I have a separate 1 hour. Today 6 to 7 I will talk only about security. Just try to understand. So while setting up a RPA tool selection, RPA architecture design, RPA infrastructure setup, you have to consider scalability, performance, security. The next feature is maintainability. What do you mean by maintainability? Maintainability means we have developed the script. We have deployed the script in the bot. So bot is installed in VM. Your bot is executing now. So your bot is executing. Suddenly, your source or target application modified. Process is modified. In simple, process is modified. So we need to repair the script. So we have to do some repair of the script. So suddenly our process is modified. So we need to do repair of the script. Process can be modified, or client is expecting more performance improvements to RPA scripts. So some changes. So if any new changes comes, your RPA infrastructure should be easy to deploy the new scripts, easy to deploy the new versions of the same script. That is called maintainability. Script modification should be easy process. The new version of the script should be deployed in dev environment, test environment, UAT, pre-production, production in an easy way. Support should be easy. So maintainability. So this is one important feature, maintainability. Change control. So what do you mean by change control? Any new version of the script should be easy to add, easy to deploy. How we do that, we'll discuss. Next, availability. So availability. See, availability means let's say if you go and talk to client, so you can propose what is difference between human process execution and RPA execution. What is the difference between execution between human and RPA? Generally, we will tell, if it is human execution, one FTE can execute 8 hours per day, but robot can execute 24/7. This is the statement we give. It's a wrong statement, because your bot also requires some downtime for refresh, to load the new data, to deploy the new script. So always you have to propose bot can execute a process, 22 hours. 2 to 3 hours of downtime is expected per day. 2 to 3 hours of downtime is expected per day. So your bot may not execute 24/7, but try to uh, try to see bot should be available most of the time. It may not be 24 hours, but it should not be less than 20 hours. Only 1 to 2 hours of downtime is allowed for bot refresh. So always bot's availability is important. Even they ask questions about disaster recovery, disaster scenario. What do you mean by disaster scenario? Let's say all your bots are installed in VMs, all your VMs are deployed in one computer. That computer is crashed or server crash, and all the bots are executing critical processes. Suddenly the server crash. So then what happens? So while setting up infrastructure, you need to go with active scenario, passive scenario. So we need to have a separate infrastructure setup. So we call it as a disaster recovery. So we discussed the disaster recovery from 5 to 6 as part of availability. That we discuss as part of availability. Suddenly one bot is not running. All the bots are not running. Server crash, bot crash, internet failure, virus alert. Some virus is blocking our bots not to execute. So what happens? We call it as a availability. So that scenario we'll discuss 1 hour. Then, so one more principle is, operability. So what kind of, so you can install all your bots in, any virtualization technology. You can install by using VMware, Citrix, next Gen Desktop, Hyper-V. Hyper-V is from Windows. So while configuring your VM, so go with virtualization technology, so that if you go with this kind of thing, it is easy to scale up. So all your bots are installed in the VM. VM has to be configured with VMware or Citrix Gen Desktop or Hyper-V. So these all are the, we call it as, in admin language, we call it as a mounting software, or we call it as a configuration tool. It's a VM configuration. This topic comes under VM configuration. So these are eligible: VMware, Citrix Gen Desktop, Hyper-V. Now even I will touch this one. And this recoverability. So if any server crash happens, how fastly this can be recovered. So what is the recoverability scenario? And one more important topic is presentation layer automation. What do you mean by presentation layer automation? Presentation layer automation means these bots interact with the source and target application UI layer only. So what is the bot job? So you are writing script, right? So you are extracting the data from Excel interface. You are extracting the data from Outlook. You are extracting the data from web. So you are extracting the data from different user interfaces. So all these tools should work on presentation layer only. So these are the some of the principles, technology architecture principles in RPA. At least, so write down the major points. What are the technology architecture principles? Scalable, performance, security, maintainability, availability, operability, recoverability, presentation layer automation. So this class, mainly we address these kind of points only, right? So with more practical approach. So at least see, just for time being, no need to write this description. At least what are the technology architecture principles in RPA? Scalable, performance, security, maintainability, availability, operability, recoverability, presentation layer automation. Now, Now we'll go with technology architecture assumptions. So there are some assumptions also. You have to remember. Your project RPA admin has to remember these assumptions while setting up the infrastructure. The first assumption is training environment. Always, training environment will run on the developer workstation. So, we should have a training environment for RPA. It's a new technology. So our employees are new to this technology. So any kind of RPA training can happen only on the developer workstation. Developer workstation is a key assumption. So don't use your test environment, UAT environment, production environment for training, RPA training. Then robot failover. Failover scenario means we have 10 bots, suddenly one bot is not executing, or 2 bots are failed, 3 bots are failed due to hardware crash, internet failure, whatever it is. If some number of bots are failed, it is better to have an additional 25% of additional bots. So while giving quotation to client, you need to remember that, let's say actually you need 10 bots, but better add 25% extra to 10. So 10 by 10, 25% means 4 more bots. You give that means total we need to set up 14 bots. So this is one assumption. So virtualized desktop. So there is an IT support model in place for virtualized desktops. So because we are going to install all our softwares in VMs only. So your company should have VM setup. Or professionals who knows how to set up the VM by using different technologies. Windows VM is Hyper-V. So Windows VM they follow Hyper/V or Citrix Gen Desktop. That is from Citrix. Okay, like this there are different providers. VM providers are available in the market, and even in RPA project, it is better to have a testing system. Always test environment should be available, because most of the times we see in real time the scripts which we developed in dev environment, RPA developer workstation, are failed in production. So it is better to have the separate test system, and you need to give enough volume of the test data. Test data volume is also important. Unfortunately, this is one flaw in the current RPA scenario in real time. I know some companies where they started RPA implementation, they failed in RPA implementation, they got very negative feedback from the clients, because they have not tested that script with enough volume. They tested with 1-2 scenarios, 1-2 samples of data, they deployed directly in the client environment. So bot failed to execute. So always while going up to set up the infrastructure, so we need to load enough tested data to test the script you developed. For example, one script you developed is copy the data from Excel sheet, load into SAP server, or copy the data from Excel sheet, load to Outlook. That's what you automated. You tested with 2 records in Excel sheet. It's working fine. But when it is copying 1 lakh records from Excel sheet, it may fail. That's what I'm talking. So you try to understand the scenario. You have automated. What is the process you automated? Excel, copy data from Excel to Outlook. You tested with 2 records. Excellent. It's working very high speed. But in real time, the scenario tested by the client in UAT or real time, copy 1 lakh records from Excel sheet, load to Outlook. It may fail. So unfortunately, so many RPA developers are not testing in test environment, not testing with enough tested data. Okay, so then one more thing, business application test instances will be used for robot development. So again, the same point, separate environments are important for dev and test and UAT. And robots IDs can be set up in global active directory. See, this robo ID, I will talk about robo ID in security. So robo ID means, sometimes, let's say we have multiple bots. So each bot should have a login details, user ID and password, bot ID and password. These should be integrated to Active Directory so that it leads to better security. We'll touch this point in security class. So named and concurrent developer counts are estimated to be 100 total developers. See. So how you give access to users, disaster recovery, configuration management, robot operating uptime. So what is the availability of the time? Like this, no, you need to remember. You need to go with some assumptions while setting up the infrastructure. So these are some kind of assumptions. You should have a testing environment. Consider robot failover. All these robots should be deployed in the virtual desktop VMs. Tested data should be available. Separate environment should be available. Each bot should be given with the ID. So access control, disaster recovery. Okay. So these are some of the key assumptions in RPA project. RPA administration. Sir, I am a RPA developer. Do I need to remember all these things? Not required. Just for knowledge, I am telling. Why I am conducting all these classes? Again, I am telling. If you attend interview, so for interviewer, you should give a very good story. I have done the life cycle. I have done the infrastructure. Then you will get job very easily. That's why I am trying to cover more and more points about architecture and all these topics. See, assumptions, no, not so important, but key requirements. Key requirements. See, always assume 99.5% excluding the normal maintenance window. Your bot should have 99.5% of uptime, excluding the maintenance window. Excluding the maintenance window. So your bot should be always running, except maintenance. Maintenance means refresh, new script deployment kind of thing. And this is one key requirement. See, now we have implemented. Okay, let me tell you one process. For one of the client, one key process is automated. For one of the client, one key process is automated. That key process is that process purpose is it will run the job. The job running will take 1.5 hour time, and that the job will talk to multiple systems during the running. Once this job is successful, then only so salaries will be credited to employees, and that process generally runs on every month last day, final day of the monthly calendar. If the job fails, that company employees will not get the salaries. Total number of employees are 3 lakhs. So we automated earlier. The process was some kind of manual process. Now we automated. We automated monitoring of the process execution by using RPA. But it's a critical process to business. It's a very critical process to bank. Now your bots are executing it, but there should be a dedicated team. There should be dedicated RPA support team should be available, because due to any reason, either it is known exception or it is unknown exception, either it is known exception or unknown exception, if bot failed to execute that process, immediately bot should send an email to the support team, so that support team will at least execute it manually for that instance. So later RPA developer will fix the problem. Are you getting my point? It's a critical process which is linked to SLA, we call in real time, linked to timeline. At any cost, bot has to complete that process execution by January 30th, February 28th, kind of thing. If bot fails to execute that process, at least employees has to execute it, right? So even though you automate your processes, if it is based on the support teams are required for RPA. Trust me, by next year this time, at least millions of RPA support teams will be in IT industry. Currently RPA is in POC stage. Then it will be in implementation. Then all the implemented projects requires RPA support projects. Again the same story, support tickets and all those things. So here you see the key requirement is, if for 30% of the bots which are critical to the business, 24/7 support team is required. For 35% of the bots which are not so critical, 5 days per week, 16 hours of support is required. 2 shifts, first shift and second shift. For there are so not so critical, not medium, very less significant processes. So 5 days a week, 8 hours of support is required. See, in my project, if bot fails to execute any task due to any reason, it will send email to support RPA support team and RPA development team. RPA support team, they will run it manually, the process they will do it manually, or they initiate the old way of doing, and development team fix the script, at least for next time. So what is the key requirement? All your bots should be 99.5% available, no downtime. So except maintenance, support hours. So even for RPA projects, we need to form a RPA support team. Third one, integration, inventory of applications that will be accessed by robots. So your bot must have access to all the source and target application. Otherwise, your script you have developed correctly, but due to access issue, your entire process may not complete. Bot may not complete the process. So you need to ensure the key requirement is, see, your bot, so has to interact with 10 source systems. So your bot should have login details of all the 10 source systems. It should be able to access data from the 10 source systems. That is the third point. Fourth point, again, security. So again, I'm not talking about security where we call it as active directory integration and all. All the bots should be configured in VM so that easy to scalable and more availability. If one bot is paid, other bots must be able to share the work which has to be done by the bot one which is paid. Even that point I will talk about the availability. See, hope you understand. These are the points. If you're an RPA admin, sir, I want to join RPA admin course. I want to become an RPA admin. Earlier I was an admin guy. I want to become a Blue Prism admin. I want to become an Automation Anywhere admin. Even you have the jobs. But so as a RPA admin, you need to understand some principles, assumptions, and key requirements. So these are the theoretical part you should know regarding RPA administration. So based on these points, we'll start the discussion about the RPA architecture. Okay, so hope you understand the big picture. So lot of concepts you need to understand. Setting up a RPA infrastructure is not easy. Last 1 week we are trying to set up a RPA infrastructure for one of the clients. Lot of emails we are sending from admin team, security team. In my company we have admin team where they set up the admin infrastructure, server, cloud server, physical server, VM configuration, VLAN, maintaining in the LAN, enable the port. All these things will be done by admin team. Second team is security team. So we have to get approval from the security team. Otherwise, it is not easy to install the VM. Because if you see this diagram, so last week they raised this question to me. From now, how many VMs you want? 2 VMs. One computer, you want 2 VMs. They told me, Ramanam, one computer, how many IP addresses you have? One IP address. How many VMs you are installing? 2 VMs. Each VM will not get IP. So then how you put those 2 VMs in cable net? So this for each VM you want communication, right? Each VM should be in internet. If you want to set up the VM in internet, you need IP address to VM. For that, you go and talk to security team. They have to create a security exception. Then only we can configure, one computer with multiple VMs. Like this, lot of discussions. Last 1 week, it is undergoing. We daily have a discussion. The next question, okay, VM we set up. What you want to install in VM? Blue Prism. Is Blue Prism our own software or standard software for our company, or it's a separate software? No, it's a third-party software. Again, security exception. Talk to security team. I know you have the license. You have purchased the license, but you cannot install the third-party license like that. So they approved to Blue Prism. Excellent. Now to install Blue Prism in VM, you need operating system to VM, right? So what operating system you want to install? Windows 7. Get the license. Now you have Windows 7 and you have Blue Prism. Everything is installed, but these multiple clients to talk to server, IIS has to install. So the most difficult part in my RPA journey, I am working in RPA from last more than 1 year. The most difficult part is infrastructure. Development is easy. Use case understanding, process assessment is also easy. Development is easy. Deployment is easy. Testing is easy. Tool selection also easy. The difficult part in RPA is infrastructure. Okay, right. How many VMs you want to install? 10. Excellent. Then this server is cannot support it. So if you want more than this capacity, again go and talk to so and so team. They only install this kind of server cap. They can increase the capacity of the server. So if you want to install all the VMs in physical server, you raise the ticket today. After 90 days, it will be approved. Okay. You want to approve the ticket by 15 days, then go for cloud server. Cloud server can be installed in 15 days. So a lot of discussions. Why the problem is, there is no dedicated RPA admins in the market now. It is RPA admin job. Unfortunately, currently RPA developers are doing it. That is the confusion. I don't know about your career path, but if you are from admin background, you learn Blue Prism admin course. I don't know who is offering that course. No one is offering that course. But you do little bit R&D and Blue Prism admin, you will be having very bright future. Very rare. In entire India, I am working in one of the biggest MNC. My company has lot of automation developers, and we have hardly tens of admins are available. Below 10 admins. We have 1,000 RPA developers in my company, but 10 admins. Very rare. For admin, it is very easy. Blue Prism setup, server setup, all these are very easy for admin. Anyway, okay. Now slowly we'll try to understand architecture part. Any Blue Prism follows 3-tier architecture: client, server, database. Client, server, database. So what do you mean by client? So this is a typical simple communication Blue Prism. Client speaks to server. Server channelizes the connection to database to pull the data and gives it back to client. So what do you mean by client here? Client means it can be a control room, it can be interactive client, or it can be runtime resource. These three are the clients only. These three are the clients only. These clients, so they say, easy, environment setup. I will draw one more thing. Bot 1 VM, bot 2, bot 3. We go with 3 bots. So these are installed in server 1 or machine 1. To avoid the confusion, you can call it as a machine 1. And here in this machine 2, you install the control room. And in machine 3, you install the database. Generally, database is SQL Server. So typical database is SQL Server. So bot 1 is executing a process called extract the data from Excel sheet. Extract data from Excel sheet. So when it is executing the process, it will talk to control room. Control room interacts with the database server. It fetches the required data. It gives the data back to control room. Control room gives data back to so bot 1 to complete the process execution. So that's why now you call it as a 3-tier architecture. Multiple bots are in one machine. Control room is in one machine, and database server is in another machine. Sir, we are not having 3 computers in my company. Our company is a small company. Can I install all 3 in one machine? You can install. That's what you are doing in your laptop. But typically, so based on the number of bots, so this is one, so machine one. Just don't go with client server. You will confuse. Machine one, machine two, machine three. Here you have the database. You have the control room. You have the bots. Okay, logically, these are the 3 different physical servers. This is one physical server. This is physical server 2. Physical server 3. What is the first physical server purpose? To install VMs and install bots. What you have? What is this control room installation? This is DB server. How communication happens? This is installation. See, installation is different. Communication is different. So installation is different. Communication is different. How installation happens? So this is the installation procedure. How communication happens? So bots will execute according to the schedule you have mentioned in the control room, and while executing it, it talks to control room. Control room will send the request to DB server. Control room will send the request to DB server. So this is tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. So clients are restricted from accessing the database directly. So clients can talk to control room can talk to database server. So even you can do this complete setup even in 2 machines. Even in 2 machines you can do. In one machine you can install the clients and bots and control room. In other machine you can install the database servers. Installation is different, communication is different. Please don't get confused. Okay, so for all your questions, we'll discuss later. Just give me some time. Okay, so coming to communication part. See what happens in a typical client server architecture. Whenever bot send a request to, control room will send that request to, control room is installed in IIS machine, so it will send request to IIS is a web server here, and from that request will be passed to load balancer, which is in application server, and load balancer will get the data from the database and gives it back to client. It's a typical 3-tier architecture. It's a typical, so Blue Prism follows typical 3-tier architecture. You see this diagram. See, these all are my clients. These all are my clients. It is a dev client, it is an interactive client. So all these will send request to application server. All these will send request to application server. Application server receives the request from these clients, and it sends request to database server. Database server will execute and it gets the data. It will give back to application server. Application server give back to client. So client will complete the process. A typical 3-tier architecture. Any RPA technology follows typical 3-tier architecture. So client speaks to server. Server channelizes the connection to database to pull the data and gives it back to client. So how many type of clients we have? 2 clients. One is interactive client and runtime resource. So these 2 are the clients in the architecture. You can see different, this is the infrastructure required, but we'll go with this. So infrastructure blueprint. So just see the diagram. So I want to understand the text. See the diagram. A different view. A different view. See, if you understand this, then it is more easy. Your Blue Prism runtime resources and a Blue Prism interactive client, so they will send request to application server. Application server will send request to database server. It send response back to application server. Application server will respond back to client. This is a typical 3-tier architecture. This is interactive client. This is interactive client. This is runtime resource. So this is for developing the script. This is to run the script. So you draw this diagram. So I will, if you want, even you can get this PPT from Google also. It's a typical Blue Prism architecture diagram. So typical blue prism architecture diagram. Yeah. Now we'll start understanding one by one. What is interactive client? What is runtime resource? What is application server? What is database server? So these four components we'll try to understand one by one. See, if anyone asks you to explain any RPA architecture, so Blue Prism Interactive Client, Blue Prism Runtime Resource, Blue Prism Application Server, SQL Server Database, Virtualization Technology, Active Directory Domain Controller. These are the 6 components which you have to explain, and you have to draw this diagram. So what is Blue Prism Interactive Client? What kind of operating system we should have? What is runtime resource? What is application server? What is database server? What is virtualization technology? So what is Active Directory Domain Controller? So that is my next 1 hour class. Next 1 hour, I'm going to talk about only the components of RPA architecture. Till now, I have given introduction to RPA architecture, kind of technology principles, assumptions, key requirements, basic thing. Now, next 1 hour, I'm going to talk about these 6 components. What is interactive client? What is runtime resource? What is application server? What is database server? What is virtualization technology? What is Active Directory Domain Controller? The next session is, after discussing these components, so next 1 hour will be security and disaster recovery of the Blue Prism. Security and disaster recovery of the Blue Prism. So now, so let's go for a break for nearly, now the time is 4:26. Go for 20 minutes break. After the break, we'll continue the discussion. See, architecture in a class, little bit tricky. Okay, so you have to be very active in the class. లేకపోతే చాలా టఫ్ అవుతుంది. అసలు క్లయింట్ ఏంటి, సర్వర్ ఎవరు? సో దీస్ ఆర్ very very important points. And now we are going to, next 1 hour is the actual architecture class. First we will understand the client components. Blue Prism interactive client plus Blue Prism runtime resource or control room. All these 3 are the client components only. It can be Blue Prism interactive client or runtime resource or control room. All these 3 are the clients only. So generally, what is the process? No, interactive client sends request to control room. Runtime resource also sends request to control room. Control room will try to talk to database. Okay, see again. See, please try to understand. For me, there are 3 types of clients. Client 1, where you develop the script, it will talk to control room. Okay, so after developing the script, you can deploy in the control room, right? Then runtime resource, which executes the process. How it executes the process? By interacting with the control room. So logically, your server will receive request only from control room. So your server will receive request only from control room, because there is no direct connection between runtime resource and the server. There is no direct connection between runtime resource and the server. Runtime resource interacts with control room. Control room will send the request to database. The request, so is it clear now? So the request which is sent by the control room will be received by application server. Who will receive the request? Application server. So please don't get confused between control room and application server, which sends request to server. So which server will receive the request? Application server. Application server receives the request from control room. This is only the statement you have to understand. Then there will not be any confusion. Generally, why even in real time, my colleagues are also get confused because they think that this is server 1, server 2, server 3. No, see, these are the server setup for installation, not for communication. If you have this clarity, then story will be very easy. Understand architecture. Logically, I have installed my clients, my servers in three components, three machines. For me, machine 1, machine 2, machine 3. Machine 1, I installed the pods. Machine 2, control room. Machine 3, database. Machine 3, database. Now, which will try to talk to database? Control room. So now tell me, control room is client or server? Client. It's a client. You install in server. See, server, why we are talking about server? Server is a physical component. Server is a physical component where you install control room. Somewhere you have to install control room. So you install control room on one physical server. Right? So control room or control center, it sends request to application server. Why application server required? Control room. See, so for the late joiners, say I'm talking about simple topic because this understanding is required. Can runtime resource try to talk to database? No. Who will send request to database? Control room. So interactive client and runtime environment, these are not sending request to server. So I have two components in architecture. Then it will be very easy to understand. Component 1 is control room, component 2 is database. I have two components. How control room sends request to the database? It requires a medium. That medium is called application server. In your application server, there is a physical hardware called load balancer. There is a component called load balancer. What is the purpose of the load balancer? Or I will give you one more very general example to understand this architecture. You open a browser, you enter google.com. Your browser is client. You are sending request to server. Which server receives request? DB server or application server? So web server or application server? So these will receive the requests. So in the same way, just you replace browser with bot or control room. You replace the browser with control room. Control room sends request to database server, but database server cannot handle it, right? So which component will receive? Application server. In application server, there is a concept called load balancer, which automatically receives the request, sends the response to database, or send response back to clients. I don't know the complexity in this topic. Very simple concept. Control room interacts to app server. App server interacts to database. App server interacts to database. Control room, application server, database server. Now, we'll discuss one by one. More details about each component. So let us start our discussion about interactive client. So what is interactive client? So interactive client means it typically requires standard Windows desktop operating system image with the business client applications and Blue Prism installed. So who will use this interactive client? Developers. RPA developers use interactive client to develop the script by automating the process steps. So what is required? So what do you mean by Blue Prism interactive client? It requires standard Windows operating system image with the business client applications and Blue Prism installed. What do you mean by business client applications? What do you mean by business client applications? Business client applications means your Excel, your web, your PDF, your SAP, what you are automating. So all this has to be installed in the interactive client. Okay, so used by Blue Prism developers in 1:1 ratio. One Blue Prism developer must have one interactive client installed to build and test the process in development and test environment. Used by process controllers to control and monitor the runtime resources in production environment. So, see, you developed the script, so you have to deploy it to control room so that control room can execute in runtime. So virtualization can be recommended. Even these Blue Prism interactive clients also you can install in the VM. And this is the minimum configuration. This configuration may change from version to version. So now you are using version 5. The latest version of Blue Prism 5.0.8 something. In my company we are using 5.0.0 or 1. I think 1. Yeah. Yes, 0.1 we are using. So, but the latest is 0.8 something. The recent version is launched. 5.0.8 some new version. 1.8. So Intel. So these are the configuration required. Minimum configuration required for your machine to install the interactive client. Now, by considering the youngest industry RPA, this is a question now. But later, everyone knows this is not a point to discuss. So these all are the here you can see this diagram. So control room, developer. See, Blue Prism developer can develop the script in interactive client. He can do scheduling through control room. So it will interact with there will you can see this line. You can see this your Blue Prism interactive client has direct connectivity to automate this. But you see this line. So we are automating this application, but your Blue Prism interactive client is not having direct connectivity to automate this. It has to integrate with it has to interact with the Citrix, then only interact with the application. So to automate these kind of applications, you need to use surface automation, where you extract the image, okay, and work on image operations. Right? So this is an example for surface automation. So interactive client have two types of connectivity to automation. One is direct connectivity, other one is surface automation. So any questions on this point? Blue Prism interactive client means a software which you installed in your workstation, which will use for developing the scripts. Blue Prism interactive client. Okay, I have a question here. Can I use Blue Prism interactive client as runtime resource? Yes, but it is more costly. By using interactive client, you can develop, you can test, you can run. But why we use runtime resource? Just to execution. So I can say runtime resource is having the subset of features when compared to interactive client. Interactive client is having more features. You can develop, you can test, and you can run. But in runtime resource, you can only execute. It's a basic point, but still I am stressing. Some students may not understand it clearly. So can I move on to next slide? This is one component in architecture. See, this is architecture diagram. I am talking about this component. These are the clients. Why we use clients? Develop, test, schedule, monitor, report, execute. We use these two. So when I say client means interactive client, control room, runtime. These three are the clients. So most of the students are having confusion. Control room, client or server? Client. It's a client. But it is installed in some server. It communicates to application server. It communicates to application server. So any clarity you want on Blue Prism interactive client? Any questions? So how many types of automation we can do by using interactive client? direct connectivity, surface automation. Direct connectivity, surface automation. So basically control room in, yes, very good question. The question is, control room comes with interactive client license, or it's a separate license, or it comes with runtime resource. That is the question. In Blue Prism, you will get one setup, means they will give license. Let's say if you buy one bot in Blue Prism, they will give you one interactive client, one control room, which is mapped to one database. So there is no separate cost for interactive client and runtime bot and control room. But in automation anywhere, even to initial setup of your RPA, you need to buy interactive client separately, runtime resource separately, control room separately. But in scaling up, so now I have initial setup. In Blue Prism, I have initial setup. I have 5 developers. We bought 5 interactive clients which are integrated to one control room. But I want more Blue Prism runtime resources. Then you can scale it up. Okay. See, in automation anywhere, each component you have to pay the money. So each bot, each control room, you have to pay the money. License cost will be there. But in Blue Prism, initial setup will come if you buy one bot in Blue Prism, one interactive client, they will give you control. But scaling up means you want 10 runtime resources in Blue Prism, you need to pay each Blue Prism cost, each runtime resource cost. And one more point here, how many control? See, I have 10 bots which are connected to control room. I have 10 bots which are connected to one control room. Can I maintain 1000 bots to one control room? No, it affects your performance. So logically, according to RPA standards, one control room can control 100 bots. That is the RPA standard. For example, you have 200 bots. Each bot is doing very simple process automation. Even 200 bots also can be connected to one control. That is the standard. So next question. Okay, so you have 100 bots which is integrated to one control room, then one application server is enough. You have more bots, more transactions and more control rooms, right? So then you need to maintain more than one application server. Based on the number of bots. How many control rooms are required? How many application servers are required based on the bots? And its transaction and its load.
Can we control rooms connected to one application?
Yes. You can, because it's a client. You can connect 10 control rooms also to one application server or multiple application servers. So all these are architecture, design is important actually. This has to be considered. Okay, so any questions on interactive client? Then I move on to runtime resource. So this is my interactive client. So what we do with interactive client? Develop the script, test the script, run the script, monitor the script. Okay, so what is runtime resources? Here you see runtime resource. So the purpose of the runtime resource is, which executes the process in real time. Here you see the diagram. No need to go with the text. So you see the diagram, which executes the process, in real time. Okay, so it will do process execution. So it will interact with source and target applications, direct connectivity or Citrix connectivity. It will receive the request and it will it will talk to control room. Control room will send a request to application server. Application server will send request to database server. So the runtime resource purpose is, for the people who are not able to see this, so this is the runtime resource purpose. It runs fully unattended automated process against target applications, often referred to as the robot on a single virtual machine. In one VM, you can install one bot. How many bots are required? How many runtime resources are required? How many runtime resources are required? Based on the number of processes you have, based on the volume of the applications you have. That is the first point we discussed in today's class. How many runtime resources we have? So one bot can execute 1500 applications per day in 24 hours. Can we ask the same bot to execute 15,000 applications? No. Are you getting my point? See, you have 5 developers in your company, so 5 interactive clients, 1 control room. But how many bots I need? When I say bot, runtime resource, how many runtime resources I need? That depends upon the number of processes you automated and process execution time and volume. Process execution time and volume. Again, I am telling, this is important point. ఎన్ని రన్ టైమ్ రిసోర్సెస్ లైసెన్స్ తీసుకోవాలి? ఈ క్వశ్చన్ వేరు. ఎన్ని ఇంటరాక్టివ్, హోప్ యు అండర్స్టాండ్ ద డిఫరెన్స్. ఇది కూడా అర్థం కాకపోతే నేను చేయలేను. ఐఎమ్ ట్రయింగ్ మై లెవెల్ బెస్ట్.
Sir, if one bot is executing only 8 hours,
okay,
so remaining hours it will be free, so we can use for other bots,
yes,
right?
Yes, yeah, we'll go to the discussion. See, the concept is, I have one bot which is installed in one VM. The bot job is continuously check email. If you get the email, then copy the email content, copy the email attachments to open the email attachment, copy the data to Excel sheet. This is the job, this is the process. I have one bot, it has to do 24 hours the same job, it has to continuously do the same job. So I have one process, the process is the same process and it is installed in one bot, the script is installed in one bot, the bot is busy, 24/7 the bot is busy, it is running throughout the day. Can you use the same bot to run other job? No. Can one bot execute 2 processes simultaneously? No. Because this RPA technology works on presentation layer automation. What do you mean by presentation layer automation? Bot will exactly interact like a human to application. It is not interacting with database. It is not interacting with middle layer. What is bot? What is RPA? RPA bot interacts with any application like a human. So like a human means, like FTE means, open email, read, check for the mail. If you get the email, download the attachment, copy the data, load into Excel sheet. That's what your bank employee is doing. So any RPA technology, it works on presentation layer automation. So the very important interview question: can one bot execute 2 processes simultaneously? No. Means one bot is talking to Excel sheet. At the same time, can it talk to Outlook? No. It can do execution step by step. Here I have a different scenario. I have one bot which has to execute one process daily morning 9 AM and execution time 1 hour. The bot work will over 10 AM. So 10 to tomorrow 9 o'clock, the bot is free. It is not doing it is not assigned to execute any other process. I have the second bot which is overloaded today. Can bot 1 execute bot 2 work? That is the question. Sometimes no. You can configure like that, but no means in your company there is a HR bot, there is a finance bot. Today HR guy is not having any work. Can you use him to process salaries? No, it is not his skill. In some companies there is a restriction. There is department wise bots. A bot which has to execute only HR processes. A bot which has to execute only admin process. Okay, so even though HR department bot is free today, finance process bot is busy today, still you have to go for second finance bot only. You cannot utilize this because this process is controlled, restricted, not to execute finance process. Bot one is restricted from not to execute other department process in your Blue Prism settings. But logical answer, I have 5 bots. One bot is overloaded, other bot is free. So your scripts can be executed by any bot. Logically true. Logically true. But there can be restrictions in real time. So all these things has to be considered by technical architect while designing the architecture. How many communicated? How these bots has to be communicated to server. It depends upon the scheduling of the process. Initially it is not a tough question, but later on next year if you come, most of the interview questions will be on this point. Because currently currently we have we have taken one bot. That bot is enough, that is executing all the processes, because we automated only 10 use cases. But your scenario, your client has automated 1000 use cases. Can one bot execute all 1000 use cases? No. Then how many bots are required? Which bot is available? It's a very good discussion basically. Hope you got me. But it is not blindly, one bot is free so that the bot can execute other process. No. Sometimes there is a restriction at a bot level. Bot 1 only allowed to execute these systems. So already we discussed this point. The next point, virtualization. So this is the virtualization is recommended to be able to quickly scale out and to have an environment that is fully virtualized environment. So already we discussed this point. So that it is better, instead of installing your bot in directly laptop or computer, it is better to install. So configure all VMs in one computer as if with Hyper-V technology. So and these bots need connectivity and access to all business applications. So used for development and testing. Typically, runtime resource has to be typically it requires standard Windows desktop operating system image with the business client applications and Blue Prism installed, but can installed on Windows Server OS. So these are some of the points about the runtime resources. Any questions on runtime resource? Can runtime resource directly talk to application server? No. Runtime resource will talk to application server, so through control room. So these are the minimum requirements. So these are the minimum requirements to set up the VM. These are the minimum. So it's not an interview question. Just like for knowledge, I'm telling you. Even I cannot remember, right, these things. Okay. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, we'll move on to the next topic. That is called application server. Application server. So if I have 100 plus bots, then it is better to have 2 control rooms. It is better to have 2 control rooms, 100 plus bots. Not only even 2 control rooms, right? Let us say I have 1000 bots. Tell me, so in our architecture we designed like this. Each 100 bot, 1 application server. Like that we designed. For 100 bots, 1 application server. So how many bots we have now? 1000. Then how many application servers are required? 10. In a positive scenario. But suddenly in 10 application server, there is a chance that one application server may get crashed, hardware failure. One application server may be struck due to any issue. So it is always better to maintain n plus 1 application servers to receive the request from the clients. So plus 1, n plus 1, that means ideally you need 10, but it's better to configure 11 application servers. So any one application server is down, that work will be distributed in other 10 servers. It is not like that plus 1 is for down server. N application servers, any one server is down, that server work will be distributed to other 10. Total we have 11. One is down. So how many are available? 10. So Blue Prism application server, even you can see this, so how it receives the request. See here you can see in this diagram, how many application servers we have? 2. Application server 1, application server 2. Why? If this server fails, this is a backup. This is a backup. So every time when client send a request, it will go to main server and backup server also. Suddenly, if it is down due to any recent disaster happened in hurricane in US, right? So on one of the Citibank servers are in that location. Entire Citibank operations administration work is happening from that location. So they should have a business continuity plan from Singapore or somewhere. So this is the main server, this is the backup server. So in minimum case also, worst case also, how many application servers are required? 2. N plus 1. 1 is minimum number, 2. 1 is for active, 1 is for backup. Suddenly, if this is the main server, this is down. How these bots will communicate to the server? Based, you have to do manual connection, or you can set it as an automatic process. Admins aware of this job. So this is a typical architecture. So this is for main scenario, this is for disaster scenario. Okay, now let's talk about the important points of application server. So let's talk about, see, Balaji, again now you are getting confused. Control room is one client, it's kind of an interactive client. No, it's a client. Control room is a client which sends request to application server. Control room is a client which sends request to application server. If you want to see, Balaji has to see control room. So wait, Balaji, I will show you. Can you see control room here? It is a client. That's what I am telling. So fine. Okay. So these are the points about the application server. So what is application server? So always it is better to maintain n plus 1 application server, and one server can service 100 clients. That means one application server can receive request from 100 runtime bots via control room. If more bots are connected to one control room, or then more control rooms are sending request to application server, then one application server is not enough. It is better to maintain multiple parallel application servers to improve the performance. Application servers are using the same queue from a single database. That means you have more than one application server, but one database. See, two application servers are connected to one database. So how they receive they receive the response from the database? They maintain the same queue. Use this word. Application servers using the same queue from the single database. So suddenly, if one application server is down, so other application servers are also using the same queue. Then so there is no conflict. See this. So application servers using the same queue from the single database, provides fault tolerance, since if one application server is shut down, another application server can pick up the task from the same queue and retry the tasks that have the status incomplete. This is guarantee entry question. Guarantee entry question. I have 10 bots. 10 bots are connected to application server 1. See, we'll go with some bigger picture. I have 1000 bots, 11 application servers, one database. Suddenly, randomly, one application server is down. But that application server is in middle of handling one task. It is giving some response back to client. It is down. Whenever it is down, in application server, all these application servers are connected to same queue. If any application server is down, the jobs which are handled by the application server will be marked as a incomplete, so that other application server can complete that job. This is the question, guarantee question. Application servers using the same queue from a single database provides fault tolerance, since if one application server shut down, another application server can pick up the task from the same queue and retry the tasks that have a status incomplete. In it's automatic. There is a load balancer. There is a load balancer. So application server configuration job, that is. In application server, how to configure the application server, it's a course actually. WebLogic, there are so many application servers. So that guy will take care of it. So application server configuration, internal topic, that is. Right? So application server can be configured manually or automatically. So where we call it as a load balancer. They use different algorithms called round robin algorithm. There are different algorithms on which server is handling on which task. How the task is allocated. See, the queue means bucket. So there are different tasks. Which server has to work on which task? They have, each application server has some algorithms called round robin kind of algorithms. So admin is aware of it. So that's the internal configuration of applications. Hope you got the clarity, right? Control room is different, application server is different. Control room is a client which sends request to application server or servers based upon the number of bots each control room is having. And one more point about application server. The Blue Prism server service installed, which shields database connection details from the connected clients, implements encryption and holds the scheduler. What is the purpose of it? Blue Prism server service installed, which shields database connection. So why we are sending to, why clients are sending request to application, why clients are sending request to the database server via application server? Because security. Main reason is security. See, the Blue Prism server service installed, which shields database connection details from the connected clients. So can any client directly interact with the database? No, that is called 3-tier. Client, app server, then database server. That is called 3-tier. So this is the reason why we are sending request from clients to application server, then to database server. Yeah, see, Shrikant, second application server will continue from where first application server left. See, just consider there is a queue, there is a bucket or queue where multiple people working on that. Suddenly one people fail to complete the job. Then the job will still in the queue, it will remain as a incomplete because he failed to complete it. So other 3 people will complete the job. The same concept. If application server completes the task, then it marks as complete. So other application server will not touch it. Right? So the same concept. There is no other complex topic here. So if any job See, suddenly one application server is executing one process, it is incomplete. So why it is incomplete? Server is crashed. So that it will be marked as incomplete in the bucket queue. We call it as a queue, server queue. So other servers will pick it. Other servers will pick it. So all incomplete jobs will be picked by other server. Where it is left, it will continue. So hope that address your answer to your question, Srikanth. Right. So this is the purpose why why clients are sending request to application server. Fine. So on your application server, it is one server can handle 100. Even see this, one application server failover can happen. Basic level of failover contingency in case of application server failure is supported by using multiple application server. Don't go by one application server. N plus 1. N plus 1. So what is the minimum configuration required? Dual Intel processor. If other servers are also busy while collapsing one server, how bot will execute the task? So you need see. That's why we are going with N plus 1. So we are going with N plus 1. We are not going with N server. I want one server, but I want another backup 2. N plus 1. So that is one assumption we should go while setting up the infrastructure. So yes, hope yes sir. Hope it clear to you. So always it is better to go for additional servers. Fine. So this is the minimum infrastructure required to set up the application server. 4 GB RAM, 200 GB free disk space. This is the minimum requirement. See this statement, very good statement. See all these concepts, trust me. So very few people in real time will use, because see in my project I am the RPA lead or manager, whatever it is. So it is my responsibility to set up the infrastructure. I am working with 30 plus team. They are not bothered about it. I am raising the request. I am talking to admin team. I am talking to server setup team. I am talking to security team, because it is my job as a lead. But I have 30 developers under me. They are coming to office. They do automation. They leave. For them, they are least bothered about infra. So it is only lead's job to set up the infrastructure. But again, I am telling, most of people are here to put some fake, at least 1 year fake experience in RPA. So if you know life cycle, architecture, infrastructure, tools comparison, live projects, you will get a good story so that you can explain to interviewer. Right? So just a second. First, you understand this one. With multiple Blue Prism application servers using a single database, a failure in one application server can automatically fail over to another application server. If you are not able to understand this statement, then join spoken English classes in Amirpet. It doesn't deal with anything with IT. Okay, depending on the complexity of the robot, it may still require manual steps to investigate at which step the failure occurred, and if manual steps are needed to complete the robot task. That's why if any client fails, if any transaction, if any script fails, if any server fails, immediately RPA support team and RPA infra team, RPA developer team will get email to fix that problem. So any confusion on application server, client server communication? Like that, application server also been another server or any other these three machines? Yes, perfectly fine. Now you got the point. Installation is different, communication is different. You can install all these three in one computer. But if computer is gone, then you will lost everything. So you see, you install everything in one physical server. Your bots you installed, your application server you installed, your database server. All three components you installed in one computer. If that crash happens, then everything you lose. So it is better to physically install in three machines. All clients in one server, control room in one server, and app server is in one, DB server in another machine, 4. Yeah, fine. That's why I'm stressing one point. installation communication is different. Even I am not admin. Even I am not expert in admin. I am trying my level best to tell you infrastructure because that is my job in my company now. Especially last 1 week, I'm struggling like anything. They're asking different questions which I am not aware of it. What is Hyper-V? What is VM? What operating system we have to install? What is load balancer? These all are not my subject. Okay, so this answers your question. Is it automatic configuration or manual? See, the redundancy and failover needs. The redundancy and failover needs of the application server needs to be analyzed at the application server level, but also at the database server level. Cluster fault tolerance capabilities means, see, while setting up the infrastructure, you have to analyze, how many application servers are required, how this has to be interacted with client. So what is the queue concept? That's why they given the next statement. So you may use, third-party mechanisms you have to use. So to maintain application servers or to divert, to integrate multiple clients to application server, use DNS round robin, network load balancing can be supported by Blue Prism application servers to offer automatic failover capabilities. So if you want to learn what is DNS round robin and network load balancing, WebSphere, JBoss, Tomcat courses. So these are the internal algorithms supported by Blue Prism application server. Not only Blue Prism, just for name, I'm talking about Blue Prism, any server. See this. This is also a very good point. For example, you have 100 bots. Each bot is executing one process. Each process is very critical to the business, like, very critical process. If that bot fails, if that server fails, the business is gone. Very important to client. Like running any critical system, like, aeroplane related softwares are kind of very critical business. It has to be executed at any cost. So then the redundancy and failover features, how many additional servers are required to set up, it depends upon the critical robots there and the criticality of their associated the process. Based on that, you can maintain n+2 application servers, n+1 application servers also can maintain. That depends upon the criticality of the business and budget you have. ఈ పెద్ద టఫ్ టాపిక్ ఏం లేదండి. సో ఒక్కొక్కడికి ఎన్ని హౌస్లు ఉండాలి? ఒకటి. తుఫాన్ వస్తే రెండు తుఫాన్లు వస్తాయి. సో దెర్ ఇస్ నో కాంప్లెక్సిటీ హియర్. Bots are integrated to application server. How many application servers we have to maintain? That depends upon what are the parameters, how many critical bots you have, and depends upon the associated criticality of their associated business process. So this is called high availability. If you have more application servers, then server downtime will be 0. If you remember principles, availability, scalability, security, these all are the principles. So can I move on to other component? So clear, is it clear? See, what do you mean by client? Control room. See, control room is connected to, see, finally who is executing the process? Bots. How they are executing? They communicate to control room communicate to server. Server means application server. It will send to database. Right. So if you are clear with application server, I will move on to fourth topic called database server, the next component, database server. So this is database server. Here you can see database server or data center. You call it as a data center or database server, whatever it is. So we'll write few points server. The Blue Prism database is a central repository which holds process definitions and audit information as well as configuration data such as environment-wide spectrum settings. In Blue Prism, everything will be stored in database, including your Blue Prism code, XML, including code. In automation anywhere, code can be integrated to SVN, but user information, data, all that, process data. So example. First of all, first you try to log into, control room or any client, right? See, who will validate? So once you click on client and try to enter some, okay, you will try to enter some user ID password. So try to log into control room or try to enter some user ID and password, right? When you try to enter user ID and password, if you are authenticated, then only you are allowed to log in. So how it is authenticating? So you enter some user ID and password. It will match this information to database. First you should have your user details in the database. Source application, how you log into source application is Gmail. So Gmail login details will be stored in the database. So any data, so in Blue Prism, even the code is also directly stored in the database. In Blue Prism, everything is integrated to database only. Entire XML files also will be in database. So the point is very clear. So what is the purpose of the database server? So Blue Prism database is a central repository which holds process definition, all your process information, any data, and audit information, login details, configuration of the data, such as environment-wide system settings. So all this data will be stored in the database server. So database performance and capacity can be easily scaled up. So you can add it. So the database is specific to Blue Prism environment, and therefore within an organization there may be a requirement to host number of databases based on the number of independent production environments. This is important point. Okay, I have two projects for HSBC. Project 1 is automating the loan process. Project 2 is automating some other finance process. So automating loan process and automating the finance process. I have two different projects altogether. So you can set up, different, database servers. So complete environment setup can be different. So no need to maintain one data center for all Blue Prism clients. So you may set up multiple environments. So this is one classification. Other one, I have one other scenario. Scenario is I have only one project, but dev environment, test environment, UAT environment, production environment. All these four environments need database. For all these four environments, you can integrate to one database server, where database server can be partitioned into different regions. Dev environment database, so that can be partitioned into different regions. So, can we maintain multiple database servers? Yes, because you have two different projects in our company, you can maintain two different database servers. But can we need multiple database servers? For one project? Not required. Testing also can be configured. So only thing, database has to be partitioned into different regions. So generally Blue Prism or any RPA tools, they are built on SQL Server database. So close proximity of the SQL Server to Blue Prism application server and other Blue Prism resources. So what is the size, capacity required for the database server? You can see here. So we'll try to understand important points. For example, database data center itself is crashed. Then see in this diagram, how many data servers you have? One. It is also installed in one computer, right? So if it crashes, then can any bot run? Can we run any bot? No. So again, to address this point, we have, this is the scenario. So where we call it as, these are the developer clients, your interactive client, control room, Okay, so these are the runtime resources integrated to multiple application servers, and even each application server can be integrated to. I'll show you one more diagram. Yeah, see. See, this is your main scenario. This is your disaster recovery. That means in my project we are maintaining two database servers. Each request will pass through two database servers, but one will be in main front, and I mean one is main active scenario, other one is the backup. If suddenly main data center down, then we can on the spot we can directly connect to the other one, because it's a replica of the main data center every second. It's a every second replica. So each request will pass through two data centers. So it's just a replica, right? So this is the scenario you have to explain. So this is the high availability and disaster recovery scenario. High availability and disaster recovery scenario. So this is the main scenario. Even in the main scenario itself, if any application server crash happens, you have the additional server. So if entire goes down, if data center is down, then it will get. So this is the production environment. If you are working on a critical process automation, critical RPA project, this is the scenario you have to propose to client. Like this, they have to set up the infrastructure. In a critical banking project, if you want to decide to RPA implementation, sir, really do we need this? It's a costly process, additional infrastructure. If this goes down, then you have the backup. If this is down, if this entire setup is down, so this is the business continuity plan. So this is the infrastructure setup you have to propose to clients. Any questions? This should be the production environment. So these are all the bots which are executing. So if any bot is fails, then these bots will additional bots. If this entire story is down, this is the disaster scenario. Disaster recovery scenario. So I want a setup which should work 24/7. Always my bot should continuously executing, no downtime. But it's a costly process. And this is not a new topic in RPA. This is a typical topic in administration, any project infrastructure. Yes. Now we discussed about the components. So open to discussion. Then I will move on to the next topic called security, which is very, very important in RPA. So RPA security. So this is what I'm interested in. So security, connectivity, So there are some points in. I need some time, at least half an hour to 45 minutes time I need. So in terms of infrastructure and mainly security topic I want to cover. With this you will understand the architecture part. So any questions on these four components in RPA administration? So any questions on the so you understand DB component. So if you have more than 100 robots, so we maintain two different application servers, but these two application servers are connected to one common database server. Can we install client or application server in same machine? Yes, you can install, but not recommendable. If you have more than 100 robots, then what should be the infrastructure? So this is the infrastructure. So we discussed about all these components. All the 100 robots work at the same time? Yes, 24/7, 3 hours downtime. So see, all 100 bots can execute different processes, but one bot cannot execute more than one process at a time. Can we run 15 processes from same client in parallel? No. Can we run 15 processes from same client? No. More than one process? No. What only there is exception in mainframes. So because see why we cannot execute more than one process from one bot? Because all these bots work on UI thread. All these bots work on UI thread. The exception is sometimes in executing old mainframes, So you can ask your bot to execute two processes also. That is only exception scenario. Generally, can we run more than one process from the same client in parallel? This is the question. Guarantee interview question. Can we run more than one process from same client in parallel? No. So surface connectors, we'll talk about that. These are the architecture components we are discussing. So this topic is pending: Active Directory Domain Controller, Auto Login Agent, Security. These topics I am going to cover, but basic components we discuss it till now. What is interactive client? What is runtime resource? What is application server? So what are the cloud requirements? For RPA, if full cloud, no problem, but hybrid cloud is a problem. So the entire infrastructure, either you have to maintain in cloud or you have to maintain in the local. Don't go with the hybrid cloud. That means 10 machines are in Azure, 10 machines are in other cloud is not preferable. Go with one cloud setup. So this is the database. So what is the size of the database server? So what is size of the database server? Size of the database server based on the transaction log. Transaction log. So how much time BP has taken to store the process data? So transaction log. So if you have already used transaction log, then it is go for more database servers. I mean, increase the size of the database server. So while robot clients are installed in virtual machine, easy scalability and easy maintainability. I want to create 10,000 robots. Do I need 10,000 laptops to install? No, go for virtualization. VM. So that is called virtualization technology, VM. So VDI or VM. So Active Directory controller, security. These topics are pending. Right? So how RPA tools ensures the security? I need some time. These points also we discuss. See, this document we are giving as a material to you. So this is the material I have prepared, RPA administration. So this material we are giving as a material to you. So for online students, we'll upload in our website or somewhere. You can browse it. I cannot send a soft copy. These technologies will continuously change, and even I will change continuously. I will upgrade my knowledge also continuously. But the problem and then so whenever we send these soft copies, some students are misusing it. So we have some bad experiences earlier. In 2010, when I started this institute with Agile methodology, I have prepared excellent material for Agile methodology. And that Agile methodology is one selling point to Quality Thought. Because of Agile, so many students joined in Quality Thought. Some of the students who learned Agile from me, they started teaching in other institutes, and they are using my material, or they are telling the same thing to me. Sir, my material vadutunna. Emantaru? So I don't know. I'm okay with that, but still, RPA or DevOps or any automation tool continuously evolve month by month. It's not a static topic. Any automation tool.